You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.
My guest on the Dan Nicholl Show this week is somebody I tried very hard to get a selfie with early this week at a rather large movie premiere, but as usual, he was surrounded by armies of fans looking to say hello and get a whispered moment of personal time with somebody who has done so much to light up not just South African cooking over the last while, but also a very particular take on it. Chef Wandile Mabaso, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. I think we've been trying to do this for probably 12 months now.
Well, that's because you're just ridiculously famous. And every time, I would say every time I phone you, but I know better than that. So I kind of phone your New York office and then they redirect me to the Dubai team. And
Yes.
but we did see each other earlier in the week because we got to go and see the start of the Formula One movie. You and I both work with the Mercedes-Benz brand. We got to see the cars in there. And before we jump into food, I've seen you on the track. I've seen you with cars. I've almost had to make up reasons. So I'm really sorry, Wandile. I've got to get to a meeting just to stop you talking about cars because you do love them.
No, I love cars. I mean, like I said, I grew up in Soweto. And for some strange reason, as we were growing up, we just idolized car brands, and it was like a sign of success. It just gave you a certain reputation, and it's just something we really, really follow throughout. And I think still today it's like that. And when you look at brands like Mercedes-Benz, for us, once you got a Mercedes, it's like, you've made it in life. And that's how we grew up, and that perception still exists today. So the love is still there. And now with Mercedes, I'm learning more about the product, the brand, the philosophy, and everything is just coming together.
And we get to hang around in this space quite a lot, and it's loads of fun, and it's a very cool thing to be able to do.
Yes.
But for both of us, it's a very long way from where we came. Myself, rural Zimbabwe, where I don't think there was a Mercedes in our town. Somebody had a reconditioned Toyota Corolla, and that was kind of the coolest car in rural Marandera. You grew up in a world in Soweto that geographically is very close to where you are today, but culturally, in terms of opportunity, was so very different. And yet at a very young age, there was clearly something to Wandile that said two things. One, I want to cook, and two, I want to make it. And those two are what put you on the path to where you are today.
100%. I think I've always been inspired. I've always found ways to inspire myself, even as a kid. It's life. I mean, people are down, people don't believe, you lose self-belief. It happens, but I feel like for me it's something I really, really either grew up with or maybe born with, but just that resilience to say, if I can keep on knocking this door long enough, hard enough, it has to open.
Tell me about the start of your food journey, because I think back to being a kid, and my triumph, probably in my mid to late teens, was not burning toast, then getting it into the oven with cheese and creating cheese toast. That was pretty impressive by my standards. When did you first start to get a sense that, hang on, me and food, there might be something here?
Well, probably age of like 8. And it's strange. I don't have that romantic story like every chef has, where I grew up in a farm and my mom was raising ducks, or we grew up in a bakery and my family was always around food. No, nothing like that. If anything, I hated my grandmother's cooking.
I hope she's not listening.
No, she's not. But I definitely hated I made sure I ate at home before we went to my grandmother's house. That's how bad I hated her cooking. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, it reminds me of my grandmother's cooking. And that's why I say my story is not that romantic.
Because you came to dinner at my house once and you told me that my food reminded me of your grandmother's food. I was really excited about that.
Exactly.
Now I know the truth.
But now you know the truth. Now you got the context. But I mean, from age of 8, in Soweto, back in those days, we would like disappear, go around, would really hustle, we'd play football and bet and win something like 50 Rand or something. And then we'd take that and go to fish and chips and just buy fish and chips and eat and just explore. And I'd come back late at night and get a hiding for being gone the whole day. but it was safe back then. And as we were growing up, we started catching birds and pigeons. And eventually, I had an uncle who actually worked for an Indian family in the KZN. So he knew a little bit about spices. And then he said, listen, you're catching these things, we can actually cook them. And then we started gutting them and spicing them and cooking them and braising them. And for me, that's where it started. And I think 8, 9 years old. And then when my parents got divorced, we were with my mother, and then we had to cook out of necessity. So that's when I started taking it serious.
And it gave you this grounding in a little bit of Indian cuisine, but also just the day-to-day food of Soweto. And that's so imprinted in your DNA because even today, I've been to some collaborations you've done. I've eaten your food on numerous occasions, and there are all these wonderful throwbacks to a world that we don't often see in fine dining.
Yes. So fine dining for me, Dan, and it's quite important for people to understand this, right? The world is changing. The world has been changing. It's not going to stop changing. And I think us chefs and restaurateurs should be able to change with it, if not actually be ahead of it and expect it to happen and to come. So with that being said, we have reached a new culture cuisine where, our food has become, for serious chefs, food has become an expression of you, an expression of where you're from, an expression of your culture and digging into the history. And storytelling has become a huge part of food nowadays. And we started doing this long ago, already in Paris and already in New York City around 2015, where we actually said no to gimmicks, less smoke, less mirrors. We focus on the quality and the ingredients, the story behind the food that we are serving, and also to evoke people's emotions. And unfortunately, no matter how good a dish looks or how pretty it looks as well, or how beautiful it tastes, for me, sometimes the story behind the dish makes the dish taste even better.
You mentioned New York and you mentioned Paris. Let's drop back to how you get to New York, because you've discovered that you have this fondness for food. You've now got to a stage where there's not a single bird left in Soweto. You've got to find an outlet. We share a loathing of mathematics. Neither of us was ever going to be a maths student or a maths professor. But you've got to now translate, okay, I've got an interest in this, I think I'm quite good at it, into turning it into a life. How does Wandile, the Birdman and the Briar, first get his foot in the door of becoming a chef and then find his way to New York?
Oh, wow. So, funny enough, when I was around 10, and I wish I could find this drawing, I literally drew my restaurant and showed it to my mother, and I said, this will be my restaurant. And that's not a joke at all.
What was her response to that?
She was like, obviously, like any parent, impressed, but you don't take it serious.
Yeah.
But today we talk about it on a serious note. We're like, remember that
when you were 10, you had that vision.
Yeah, and I said, listen, you need to go back to all of these school books from that. We need to find that, and unfortunately we can't find it. But I think the ambition has always been there. The question was how, how do I actually get there? And at 15, they were coming to high school and trying to convince us to become architects, lawyers, and then the hospitality guys came and they said, okay, we can send you to the Swiss hotel school, or we can send you to this hotel school or that culinary school. It was difficult. My parents, especially my dad, didn't believe that this is a career, or even a career for a black man. So it was difficult. So I opted for hotel school. I did my hotel degree. I was 17 after high school, and I used to go to school, and then after school I actually used to go to Nando's. My first professional cooking job was at Nando's.
Was it Nando's?
Grilling chicken at the age of 17.
Was that at the Central Kitchen?
After it was in Randburg, actually, down the road. not far from the taxi rank.
Yeah.
When Randburg, I think, was still like the Sandton of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So I started cooking there, and I enjoyed it, and it was really a part-time job as a student to make money. But it connected so well, the fact that I was in hotel school, and then afterwards I used to be in the industry working live. And then I think when I finished my internship, I decided to go overseas. I had a small internship here in Randburg as well, in a small hotel. One-star hotel, I was not really happy. They place you according to how you score in your theory. So mine was pretty bad. So I got the worst, and I ended up in a small one-star hotel. I wasn't happy. After 6 months, I started hustling to find something overseas, and then finally got a break where I ended up on a cruise that was based in Venice, and then I ended up in Italy.
That's it's quite a quick journey to take from
Yeah.
right. Persuade your parents. I can maybe do something in this broader space,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting on a boat in Venice, and not just in terms of job, but culturally, that's a world apart. And you're still very young at this stage.
Very young. It was an eye-opener. Back in those days, you would know maybe a few people that have traveled abroad. It was not everyone. It was not like today, where everyone's been to Dubai, been to London. So for me, I saw cities that I never thought I'd see in my life. Barcelona, Venice, even Monaco. Plenty of times I even watched the Grand Prix in Monaco for free. I mean, Kimi Raikkonen's garage, I was there. I got pictures to prove it. So for me, it was like, it's something I'd never trade for anything. And I made some tax-free money where I came back and still did my culinary degree when I came back to Joburg.
Look, I've seen your collection of supercars, so I do know how well that went for you. It sounds so cool, and I think
Yeah.
at that sort of age, you're leading this glamour lifestyle. But I suspect that it served its purpose up to a point. But being the chef at Nando's, as much as we love Nando's, was never going to be your ultimate job, just as being on a cruise ship was never going to be your ultimate job. So what then took you to New York, and what pushed you into that space?
Wow, I think it's that drive. It's that drive, Dan. It's the same drive I had as a kid. It's the same drive I had in high school. It's the same drive I had when I was doing my culinary studies. And it's the same drive I have today. Unfortunately, that light doesn't diminish. So it's that drive just to see how far I can push it, see what more can I achieve. As a kid, I always thought I'd never end up overseas. Eventually, I ended up overseas, never thinking that I'd end up working overseas, especially in a city like New York. But you end up becoming an executive sous chef in New York. So essentially, I got to the pattern of, once I reach something or reach a goal, I need to start, dreaming about something else now, and having another target, another target. What I found is that over time, that just keeps growing. It's growing, and I think the perfect example for that is the fact that we're running a marathon. Since the age of 8, I started running that marathon, and I'm still running it now. So there were ups and downs, there were uphills, my knees were sore. I felt like giving up. I got inspired again. I kept pushing, and I'm still running that marathon. And I think we're getting close to the finish line.
I don't know. I'm not sure you'll ever find that finish line, just because your marathon will keep on going because of who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
You throw up very casually there, and you become an executive sous chef in New York.
Yes.
You don't arrive in New York at JFK and say, right, hi, I'm Wandile. I'd like to be an executive sous chef. Where can I go? It's one of the most touching elements of your story, and we've discussed it in the past.
Yeah.
You walked the streets. You were sleeping on benches. You were banging on doors. I think you had your knife set and some determination, and that was kind of what you had.
Yeah, definitely. For New York City, I mean, the first time I went there, I walked down Fifth Avenue. Obviously, Times Square was the first place you visit.
And that blows your mind when you've
Yeah.
never seen it before.
Never seen it before, and you're like, am I here? Big fan of culture, theater, hip hop, music. So everything was in that city, from Broadway to music, everything, design. It was just the place that I wanted to be at that time. And it was the culinary capital of the world back then. All the chefs were moving to New York. It was growing. The Michelin guide was there. So I think I was there at the right place at the right time, but I knew that I had to hustle. I came in with 500 US dollars, and I stayed in a hostel, and there was about 16 of us in the hostel. The guys were partying, coming back with girls, and I was like sleeping there. Wake up early, get on my laptop, look at jobs, send out CVs, and then probably by 8 in the morning, take my chef jacket and knives and really look at the restaurants that I've been researching about, and then go door to door in these best French restaurants asking for a job.
A lot of those doors would not have been opened for you. How did you manage to keep going, and what was the door that finally did open?
Oh, it's the craziest story. That's why I think life just works in mysterious ways. It was a French bistro which was in Chelsea in Manhattan, and a chef called Julien, a big monster. He was about 6'5", redhead, freckles, blue eyes, scary, big, scary. He's got scars everywhere, and these are cooking scars as well. And fair enough, he grew up with a South African in Paris, and the guy's name is Pierre Issa. He was a football player.
Yeah,
You remember
I
Pierre Issa?
remember Pierre
Yes.
Issa.
He scored the own goal when South Africa played
We try not to
France.
remember that part, but Pierre, if you're listening, sorry, I told Wandile not to mention that.
Yes. So Pierre Issa grew up with Julien, Chef Julien, in Paris, and it was a matter of, oh, you're South African, okay, come in. And then I came in. Next thing, I found myself butchering fish, and because his English was bad, I used to help him with menus as well, how to write things, and I was good at writing. So we sort of became close, and it became a matter of, okay, still a trial, come back the next day, okay, come back the next day, come back, and before you know it, I was fully employed. They sponsored me. I got my work visa, and I think my journey overseas just really started, and I got into the French, classical French cooking circles.
But that's pinch me stuff when you're a young chef to be working with somebody of that stature in that sort of restaurant and given that sort of education, which is not just the classical French education, but working in a New York restaurant, which, as anybody who's read Kitchen Confidential will know, is not a happy, relaxed, fun, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya together kind of place.
Yeah, that's true. And you say that, we remember Anthony Bourdain. It was actually Bourdain Day yesterday. But he was still prominent at that time, funny enough, in New York City. So New York, yes, probably one of the roughest cities to cook in. Actually, I think one of the roughest cities to do anything in, New York City. But I think it raises the bar up. There's what we call a New York minute, where everything must be done quick and there's no time for waiting. You push yourself, you push those around you to get to the finish line, and there's a sense of urgency, consistency, and the willing to be better than yesterday. And that's that New York minute. And the fact that nobody cares about your emotions, you're on your own, but if you're smart enough, you can get the building blocks from the people around you. And that's New York City. Is just tough. I've cried many times in that city, trust me, especially in the winter where it can go up to minus 15 degrees. And we're not used to snow, and you see this every day. And then you end up in a classical French kitchen where it's very militant and very tough. So that is very, very difficult. But I think it turns you from a boy into a man.
Many people have described it as the loneliest city in the world, which for a place of millions of people sounds crazy, but it is that. It's hard and it's demanding, but it's also intoxicating, and it's almost like a bad relationship. You can't get away from it because of what it does, but it did give you so much in return, and it was so much of a part of your education, not just Wandile the chef, but Wandile the person, and that French background, I'm sure, didn't hurt with then deciding, right, can we take on France?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to spend 6 months in New York just to have it on my resume or CV. And it ended up being 5 years. I mean, that is crazy. I thought at one point, I thought, I'm going to end up living in New York City. I was like, I've been here, I've never lived in a place other than Johannesburg for so long. I really felt that I was going to live there. And then eventually, like it always happens, you keep pushing, you keep knocking the doors. Then I met Chef Alan Ducasse. This is after I left the French bistro, where I then worked in a Korean French restaurant in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Very, very, forward thinking. Was 10-seater counter where the dining room was literally a quarter of the size of the kitchen. So the kitchen was bigger than the dining room. And the chefs didn't care. And round about that time, New York was being very innovative in dining. And that's when I started getting a lot of ideas of this can be done, that can be done, we can do it that way. That's a cool concept. But I went from a Korean French bistro, and then I moved to restaurants in Soho. Then I moved to a Japanese, Japanese French fusion restaurant in Manhattan, which was quite an experience. One of the most expensive restaurants, where the plate costs more than the dish itself. And the owner was a wealthy Japanese lady. We used ingredients from everywhere, Wagyu from Australia, Wagyu from Japan, premium soya sauce, white soya sauce from Japan. So that opened my eyes in terms of luxury at the highest level. But then I met Chef Olivier, who's still a friend of mine today and still a mentor. And till to this day, I think he's the best cook that I've ever met. I've met and tasted a lot of good food from well-known chefs, but his food, immediately when I tasted it, I was like, this is the level that I want to cook in. This is the level where you got the sophistication, you've got the soul in it, and you've got the depth in it as well, and the precision in what you're trying to achieve in terms of flavor, texture, and just the combination. And he literally changed my life in my career. Mentored me for about 2 years, and he made me his executive sous chef. And at that time, we had a conversation. It's like, so how do you want to end sort of like the first part of your career? Because now you need to go to the next level. And we had a discussion. Eventually, he said, okay, I'm going to take you to Paris. I think that would be a perfect roundup. I was like, okay. Then we met Chef Alan Ducasse.
You are so casual throwing out these rock star references and the things you did. It can't just have been, oh, okay, I'll go to Paris and meet Alan Ducasse. You must, at least on the inside, have been cartwheeling and doing handstands. You're about to head to the gastronomic capital of the planet and meet. I mean, Alan Ducasse at his time was to cooking what Messi, Ronaldo, Kylian Mbappe are to football now. He's proper big time, and he's going to be your next man.
No, it's, so Olivier used to work with Chef Alan Ducasse, so they really knew each other. And it's that thing of luck, where people say luck is what, being at the right place at the right time or something like that. But I think I was always at the right place at the right time with the right mentality. And the French chefs, they really liked me and really believed in what I could do. And they mentored me and sometimes gave me more opportunities than their own French people, just out of the hunger and the drive that I always had, and discipline and consistency as well. So for somebody like Ducasse to say, okay, we're going to take you to Paris, and then we also going to create a special visa for you. We're also going to put you as the ambassador of French cuisine when you go back to South Africa. And this was done by the French ministry, and they wanted to upgrade French cuisine globally. They felt that it was going down and people were knowing less and less and less about it. So they put me out there to say, okay, come and learn this culture, and then you go back home, pretty much. And by the time I got there, I was at a sous chef level. So it was much easier but difficult. 2-star and 3-star Michelin restaurant. We used to work 20 hours a day. My first 3 months in Paris, I did not see the sun. I started at 5 a.m. I finished at midnight. I slept for about 3-4 hours, came back, execute, and then my day off, literally nursing my cramps.
It's a horrible job half the time being a chef. It looks so cool and glamorous, but it is so attritional. It never lets up.
It's a lot of work, a lot of pressure, mentally, physically. But like I say, a lot of people say, I wouldn't do this job, or this job is not for me. And you look at the stats, the students I went to school with, there's probably about 2 of us in the entire school that own their own restaurants, number one. And there's probably about 30% or less than 20% that actually are still cooking today or in the industry today. Some are just married, some are housewives, some are farmers, some are podcasters, but definitely not in the kitchen, because it is tough. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the dynamics of it. It doesn't have to be that brutal. It doesn't have to be that cheap. You can get paid a lot of money. It doesn't have to be that forceful. We can allow young chefs to be involved and feel welcome and feel accepted as well, and just mentor them the way that I've been mentored as well.
And that speaks to your space now, Les Creatifs in Bryanston. If you haven't been, I think there's an opening for October next year. Whenever you're listening, it's October next year, because it's become this absolute landmark of eating out in Johannesburg. And at a very simple level, it's because the food is terrific. But if you dig just a little deeper, and if you have the background to you, as we now do, you're going in and you're seeing this guy who's cooked at amazing restaurants in New York, who's worked with Alain Ducasse, who's worked at 2 and 3 Michelin-star restaurants, but as we said at the very start of the conversation, hasn't forgotten those roots. And I remember watching the face of somebody across from me when we had lunch at the restaurant, and there were some scallops going, and there was some langoustine, and then there was some tripe. And you don't normally find tripe on a fine dining restaurant menu, and yet here's something that you've taken. It's part of your heritage, part of your cooking soul, and for you it fits right in, and you make it do that.
Yeah. So when I came back, or before I came back to SA, Chef Alain Ducasse, he said to me, now you're going back home. When you get back home, don't go there with a big head and say that you are here. All right? When you get back home, you interact with your people, and then you humble yourself down to where they are, and then you build them up together slowly. And then once you get to that level, that's when they'll give you that respect. And I really took that to heart, and I put it to practice. And we opened up Le Creatif. Like I said, it was humble beginnings. There were no investors. It was a small office in Hobart Centre in Bryanston. And we were like, okay, we'll cook from here. That's it. So I started with 1 oven, 2 ovens. It was me. I was the chef, receptionist, you name it, everything.
Plumber,
payroll,
electrician,
everything.
clean the windows.
Everything, part waiter, everything. And then we just grew the team from 5 to 10, and we purchased furniture, clothing from a restaurant in Maboneng. We paid it month to month, and that's how we started Le Creatif. And we used to change the menu every day. And people thought that's dumb, but that's stupid. That's so much work. It's hard to be consistent that way. But I thought it's the best way to go for myself and for the team, but also to try and understand the South African palate, where it is, and find that universal palate that will work for everyone, that comes into Le Creatif, and just really find what Le Creatif is and what Le Creatif is supposed to be serving. And also to grow as a cook as well, not to just be confined to, I've learned French cuisine, I've learned a bit of Japanese. No, now I need to learn my culture. Now I need to relearn our landscape, our ingredients, and we got so much content. That's what I figured. We've got the Indian influence, we've got the influence of the Cape Malay, we've got the indigenous cultures, we've got the Indian Ocean, we've got the Atlantic, we've got a desert in the north. Not a lot of places have that. We are not telling those stories. And as much as we have a lot of restaurants, which are great, I don't think that they're telling a South African story. an authentic South African story, and that's when I saw a gap in what we need to do. And we've been open for 5-6 years now, so our 6th year. People always say, "Oh, Le Creatif," and then they rate us, and then, "Oh, would like to come. Oh, how did this happen?" I always tell them, I'm like, "Listen, Le Creatif is not even born. All we are doing now is practicing for Le Creatif to open. That's all we've been doing the last 5 years. Just trying and testing new dishes, trying and training new chefs, putting a team together, changing a system, putting another system, seeing what works, and then eventually we move locations, and then you'll see the birth of the real Le Creatif."
Again, that marathon has got no chance of ever being finished. That ambition is there.
Yeah.
It's ambition that hasn't only, though, taken you to the restaurant, because I remember we did an event together and there was a photo reel showing in the background. And after the 19th world president who was on screen, who you had cooked for, I started thinking he's clearly made all of this up and he's photoshopped all of this. And then I did some research and realized, no, actually, in terms of the people you have cooked for, it's a pretty damn impressive list, Chef Wandile.
Yeah, it is, and I'm thankful and blessed. And once again, it's something that just happened, you know.
It doesn't just happen. You've worked super hard to get to where you are. And to cook for some of these people. Tell us, who are some of those people who've been lucky enough to be cooked for by you?
Dan.
Top of the list.
Yeah, so I don't know why people are always fascinated about famous people, and famous people that you've cooked for, but you know, without naming too many names, I think when it comes to heads of states, it's probably over 20 heads of states that we've cooked for. I mean, we cooked at the BRICS summit, where we hosted all the presidents, including President Xi Jinping. So that's beautiful highlight. President of Brazil, also Emmanuel Macron, just after the pandemic when he came to visit us in the French residence. Probably over an inauguration, the kings and queens of obviously Swaziland and Lesotho and neighboring African countries. But it's not something I really focus on, although there's also some movie stars, musicians, producers, DJs, global people, you know, and also a lot of corporate guys locally, you know, your chairpersons, your CEOs, people that I never thought I'd be sitting next to and actually talking about business. So for me, it's great, but I don't focus too much on popular people and fame and so on. Yeah.
You asked me about my interest in that. It was the heads of state in particular, and the reason for wanting you to name a couple of them. And this is not related to them specifically, but you have cooked over the years for heads of state who, with one quick whisper over the shoulder to a bodyguard, you would never have been heard of or seen of again if you hadn't got the food right. Now, I say that a little flippantly, but it does lead to the question I did want to ask, which is, you are cooking for people who are extraordinarily well known or extraordinarily influential. You know you're really good at what you do, but is there still a sense of nerves? Do you still get a little stage fright, for want of a better word, when you know, right, it's not just Dan and his family who are coming in for dinner and probably leaving with the cutlery as they did the last time, but no, I've got somebody who is a leader of the free world, who's president of one of the largest countries on earth. Does that play in your head when you're cooking for people like that?
Yes, it does. And the energy will always allow it to be, because there'll be security guards everywhere, there'll be tension everywhere, and you know, sometimes it does get a bit uncomfortable. There's dogs everywhere, and there's like weapons everywhere in the kitchen. There's something you've never seen, but it's protocol, you know. People have to be protected, but honestly, I mean, Dan, I keep saying that for me, it really means, I'm grateful for it, but it really means nothing. I think anybody who sits in front of my plate is important enough. I never discriminate about who's more famous and so on, but I am blessed to be cooking for such popular people, but it's not something that I put on top of my list or I think about a lot or I tap myself on the shoulder. But even cooking for them, there's always that nervousness. So I think once you start losing those nerves, right, is when you stop getting better. I think it's when you start becoming too comfortable. I'm always second guessing myself. I'm always looking at my dish and saying, this could have been better, this is not good enough, or I need to get better. I'm always thinking that was not good enough, I need to get better again. And I'm always looking for ways to get better. And yes, I do get nervous. There's times where I don't think I'm good enough. And I think that's something that's needed for growth, because I think comfortability is the killer of everything.
I know I've a number of times suggested that tomato ketchup is missing on a lot of your dishes, and that's why you asked me to leave the restaurant last time. I almost believe you 100% about everybody is on an equal playing field when it comes to who's eating at your restaurant, and not just the state leaders. I know we spoke about Damon Idris from the F1 movie. You've cooked for him for a day, amongst so many others. But in closing, I want to ask you about two people who I think might just have a little bit more of a sway in the opinion, and they're two people who didn't, as you've already mentioned, necessarily have the same vision as you did. What is it like when your parents see what you're doing today, they come to the restaurant and eat your food, and they see little Wandile, 10 years old, picture of this is the restaurant I've drawn that I'm one day going to have. And now here's this good-looking young man with one of the best restaurants in the country who's cooked all over the world and has done something extraordinary.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the biggest gift I can give to my mom, specifically. Because she did raise us as a single mom, which we all know is never easy. So, I mean, she's happy, she's excited, she's always supported me. Even when I was in New York, she came to visit. She ate at the restaurant I was working in. She was proud then. She's always proud. I also met her in Miami when I was in the US. So we kept in touch. And she just believed in me from day one, from when I was 17 cooking chicken up until I left New York. And she was supportive, even going to Paris. Even when I came back, she was happy I'm back. And she was supportive, and she's proud. I mean, I see the tears in her eyes all the time. My whole family is proud, and my whole family has supported me as well. My stepdad is so shocked every time, because remember, for him it's like, why don't you become an accountant? Why don't you become? And I was like, how do I become an accountant? I almost failed maths. But yeah, it's for me to see it as well. I think it brings tears to my eyes. It's always a good feeling to see your parents being proud of you, or your family and your friends to be proud of you as well. But there's also the pressure of keeping that up.
You juggle both of them. You have a fabulous story. It really inspires me. The food is terrific, and I've had many meals. I look forward to many, many more of them. But the one that I do want to have with you, so we just need to sort this date out, some bride pigeon in Soweto. I'll bring some wine. You sort out the birds, because I think they've had time now, while you've been in America and France, to regenerate the population and go back to those roots, and raise a glass very genuinely to a wonderful South African success story, Chef Wandile.
No, definitely. We'll get the pigeons ready. I think we should do that in November when my champagne finally gets here, so we can have pigeon and champagne.
Sounds cracking,
right?
Chef Wandile Mabaso, he's the man behind Le Creatifs in Bryanston, but far more than that, he's this wonderful story of a kid with ambition from Soweto who made his way through the kitchens of New York, worked with the great chefs of France, and now a trailblazer in South African cooking, and also the reason you didn't see many birds in Soweto for a very long time.
You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.